Greetings, welcome, and namaste. If you are joining me right now, you are here for another lunch break yoga. This video uh, contains content that will focus on hips and low back. It's popular areas of focus. And I would say it's a good 50-50 as far as the split um, of what we'll be focusing on. A couple things I'll say, as I do in the beginning about the class. Props or anything like that for support for your practice, maybe a couple blocks, maybe a blanket, maybe even 2 blankets. This particular lunch break yoga is still going to be 30 minutes. It's still going to follow the same structure. And it is still, for the most part, pretty beginners based. But I would say it is almost borderline intermediate. So if you are just totally a beginner, you'll still be able to, I would say, do most of it, maybe. But be open-minded, right? Open-minded and compassionate towards yourself. There's going to be some more standing stuff in this little sequence, and there'll be some deeper stretches. Okay. Now my body is different than your body. So what my body is able to do during this practice, it might not be able to do in 2 hours from now, or 2 weeks from now, or it probably I couldn't have done it 2 years, you know, uh, in the past. All that's to say is always approach your practice from a place of, I'm going to give myself space, right? I'm here to show myself support and love. And if you need to take breaks, if there's something that you don't feel comfortable with, know when to back off. That's part of the practice. So for this little session, like I said, still 30 minutes, okay? So enough time to squeeze this in during a lunch break, okay? We are going to start this practice in child's pose. So if you would prefer and you have one on hand, you can put a bolster underneath the belly, the chest, and the head. If it feels available to you, I would go wide-legged, right? Take those knees out to the outer edges of the mat, big toesies touch. You're going to sink the hips back towards the seat. If you need support, like a blanket under, behind the knees, under the ankles, set yourself up. Reach, arms forward, reach, right? You'll find your stop point here. And then see, right, can you release the weight of the head so that you're supported at the forehead, and sink down at the armpits, the chest, and the ribs? If the answer is no, maybe stack the forearms. Use those forearms as a little shelf for the forehead, and rest your forehead there. Some people are like, this feels good, kind of at the low back and the hip area. The knees are a little crunchy, but really my shoulders are uncomfortable here, or my chest is kind of getting in the way. You can always sneak those elbows up, sort of in front of the knees, and plug down through them for support, resting forward just on the forearms. And maybe the head lowers forward. But find yourself a nice child's pose that you can kind of check in. Soften something. Think about maybe releasing something. If you're like, okay, I'm just here, I got to get this stretch, I'm just trying to fit this in, or I just need a minute for me. Well, let's make sure that this is for you. One of the most important features of that is you being here, right? So occupying your body to the fullest extent, being here for your whole self. Notice how the breath feels. And if you can follow along for a few, I'm going to invite you to do that right now. Maybe making sure that when you inhale, unless you're congested, the mouth is closed and you're breathing in through the nostrils. My belly expands. I feel like my low back gets bigger. And then I exhale out through pursed lips. Try that 2 more times.
Wiggling the fingers just a little. Lifting the head if you haven't yet and looking just beyond the fingertips or perhaps up to the top of your mat, okay? Make sure your neck feels safe. Make sure you have your breath about you. Make sure that you've gathered your bearings, okay? And then come on up all fours. Planting hands, stepping the knees in so that for the most part, they're right below the hip bones. I like to sway the hips side to side a little. If that felt sort of, I don't know, maybe even kind of intense, right? I need to give myself just a moment here to reorient, regroup. I like to tuck the toes and sink the booty back for the heels. Give myself just a little foot stretch here, a little toe squat. And then I come forward, I make sure I'm planted down through my hands. If that doesn't work, I find fists, or I drop down, replace these hands with elbows, and I come to my forearms. And from my table position, I take my gaze just beyond my fingers and I grab a big, deep breath. All right. Go ahead and realize the whole spine. Eyes opened or closed. Let's take some cat-cow, which means on an inhale, I press through the fingers, I release the stomach, lift the tail, lift my chin and my chest, and I look up. I stay here as long as I'd like. Maybe on an exhalation, continuing to press through the pads of the fingers, I arch at the back, I pull the tail between my legs, and I tuck my chin in towards my chest, imagining that I'm separating these shoulder blades far away from each other, and let this be a little flow. You inhale, you lift, lengthen, you exhale, you arch. Take as many of these as feels good. I only need just a couple, but it might feel real good for you to kind of quicken movement here. To maybe exaggerate one of these postures and take a couple breaths. Mindful of the knees, mindful of the feet, ankles, hands, wrists. I'm going to take one more. I exhale. I inhale, drop my belly, and I lift my chin. And then I come back to table or all fours. So I'm going to ask that you find the safest transition for your body to come from all fours to standing on your feet, okay? I like to tuck my toes and lift my seat and kind of crawl forward, right, with the feet and back with the fingers. I bend the legs and I just inhale up slowly and safely. And once I'm up, I really give myself an extra moment to reorient. You can continue to look forward on your mat. I'm going to turn this way just so that you can kind of get an idea of what we're doing. So first things first, I need you to find your feet, right? So lean back into the heels, lift the toesies, creak, pop, spread, wiggle. One at a time or at the same time, lift out of the heels. Pedaling might be a little more accessible. That's fine. Roll the shoulders. Drop them away from the ears. Check your neck. If you need to, wring out these little hands, these little wrists. And then come as close to the front of your mat as you can manage. While you're there, because we will be taking a couple lunges, I like to set my blocks up in preparation for it. So I take the blocks and I place them just up at the outer corners of the mat so that if I want them, they're there. They don't get in the way. If your knees are feeling a little crunchy or you just prefer it for comfort, you can take that blanket and you can really kind of, I don't know, it's almost like you cut through the center of it with it. And that way it's there to catch your knees, okay? I needed it earlier. I don't need it today at this point. But if you need it, you set it up. Planning down through the feet. My feet are nice and parallel to each other. I squeeze the seat a little. I pull up the thighs a little. So if I'm sucking the knees in, I soften, right? And I zip it up at the front. And my eyes are open. I find a nice full breath here. Let's take a couple sun breaths. Soften your knees or maybe just bend into them. Sweep arms out like wings. Reach as high as you can, right? Maybe grab a little extra bend through the knees, hinging at your hips. Lean, lean, lean. Tip that torso forward. I can keep my legs mostly straight in here, but I like a bend, right? And I'm going to let my whole torso, my head, my arms, everything just spill towards the tops of my feet here. Now, maybe you need to shake it out at your head. Maybe it would feel nice to kind of take the arms or the hands somewhere, latch onto it, and find that bind. Could be the toes. I was in a class the other day where they had us do what I believe we call gorilla pose, where they were placing the hands underneath the feet. Doesn't this look wild? And they were like leaning forward, somehow not falling over as they stayed there for, I would say, a good extended period of time. You can sway hips, you can pedal the legs. I ask that you make sure you can breathe here. On purpose, unless they're already there, bend deeply into the knees, right? Sweep arms out like wings, and on an inhale, reach for the ceiling. Get real long. Maybe you look up. Squeeze the seat. Pull prayer hands down to the heart. First sun breath. How you feeling? Second one. When you're ready, on an inhale maybe, sweep arms out like wings to gather it up. I reach, reach, reach. On an exhale, I fold forward, right? Hinge, hinge, hinge. My booty bones stay lifted. I'm going to bend and kind of rest my belly on my thighs. I'm going to lean the weight towards the toes without losing the heels. And this time I'm going to grab some ragdoll. So ragdoll is where you're bound at the elbows. Okay, and you let the head stay releasing heavy, dangling towards those forearms. And maybe you sway a little, maybe not. You're breathing though. One last breath here. Now I release these hands. I'm going to crawl my hands up right below my knees. Inhale, lift just a little, look forward. So I'll show you from the side here. So I have my seat lifted, okay? I've got my shoulders back. I've got my head lifted a little. This feels like a stretch, right? Through the backs of the legs, especially up here closer to the piriformis area. And I'm feeling it in my low back. I'm creating a little extra space and length. I take one more breath. And then I let it go to fold. And then I sweep those arms out like wings again. I'm going to gather it all up. Reach. As I do, I firm through the feet. I lengthen through the fingertips. I find prayer hands overhead. I feel myself pressing into these palms as I pull them down in front of my chest. Root down. Soft knees, okay? We're going to revisit that sun breath, but just so that we can come back into a lunge. If it's safer for you to just step back in the lunge, go for it. I soften the knees, I pedal my legs a little, I sweep my arms out like wings, I lift and lengthen, I release to fold. As I do, I grab these blocks, I place them to the mat, or I would plant fingers or hands, but I reach my right leg back in space. Right knee is maybe going to release down. Maybe I untuck the toes, maybe not. I pull this left hip in. I start squeezing the inner thighs in. As I bring my hand, right, to this front thigh or closer to the knee, and I broaden at the chest and lean back, I'm already feeling quite a bit here at the low back. I breathe. Now I take my right hand. I bring it right inside this left foot. It plants, or maybe the fingertips are rooted, or maybe I come down upon the flat side of a block. I keep my left butt cheek pulled in. I stay good and firm through this left foot, and I'm going to reach this left arm up, open this left armpit just a little, maybe a lot. I take one big breath, and then as I release it, I bring it inside of this left leg. I scooch the right hand back and I push that knee out, flexing into that left ankle. And I'm really kind of leaning away from this left leg. Maybe you look back a little, breathe. Maybe you look up. Maybe you look over that left shoulder. Step that leg back in, planting the foot. I find the blocks for this. I'm reversing the lunge. So I'm going to sink the hips back.
so that my booty kind of falls towards that heel. Step the blocks back, flex into the left ankle, this time so that the toes point up. As I lean the seat back, I lift the chest a little, and it's like I'm trying to pull my chest towards these toes, right? So they both stay lifted real high. And if you can see here, which I know you can, flattish back. I don't want this. I don't want this. I see a lot of people, they do this. They're like, I'm doing it. No. This should feel like, wow, that's a huge stretch in the hammy. Oh my gosh, I feel this in my low back, right? Couple more breaths. We call this half monkey. Not a lot of people are thrilled about this posture. It can be deep. I'm going to come forward, right? I'm going to release blocks to the outside of the mat again. I'm tucking toes and coming back into a downward facing dog, okay? You can step back in a cat-cow, a child's pose, or you can stay here and work on something else. I'm going to plant hands, step the left foot back, reach these hips high. My fingers are spread, right? They're huge hands. Pointer fingers are parallel to each other, right? I've got my forearms turned in. I've got my seat really reaching up, my chest reaching back towards my thighs. Maybe I bend the legs whilst keeping that seat lifted. Maybe I pedal or sway, whatever. Careful with the neck and shoulders here. Take a couple breaths. You also have to start asking yourself, transitioning or journeying up to the hands here, back into a forward fold, how do you need to change your body to make that happen? I can step forward. Some people release to the knees and step forward. I'm going to kind of tiptoe my feet forward until my feet find my hands. My seat is nice and lifted. Torso's hanging heavy over my legs. Next inhale, I lift halfway. Hey, low back. Let it go. Bend the knees, sweep arms out like wings, and once again, reach for the ceiling. Pressing into the palms like prayer hands, I exhale, pull them to the chest. Root back down. Notice how you feel. Fix your shirt and your pants, right? Pedal, pedal. Okay, let's do the other side. Soft knees, if not outright bent in them. A little micro bend, maybe. Sweep those arms out. Upward salute. Lift, lengthen. Perhaps you look up. Exhale, swan dive, fold. Looking for a breath or two. But I'm going to lift here on an inhale, grab blocks, bend legs, and reach my left leg back in space. As I do, I sink forward, sink, and then I release the back leg. So this whole right side, right, butt cheek, hip, everything. I got to pull it in a little, and then I'm going to rise on up. But I'm also sinking forward, and I'm also leaning back. Okay, now you can add on here. Once you start to squeeze those inner thighs in, if you feel super stable, you love this stretch, and you're like, no, my low back needs more, or I'm working on extending the arms up, or I'm working on Anjane, working on those crescent arms, whatever you like. I don't need all that. Breathe. Continue to squeeze the inner thighs in. I'm going to take my left hand. I'm going to plant it inside this right foot. Once it feels good and sturdy, I'm going to keep my hip pulled in here on the right side, and I'm going to reach my right arm up. So this feels nice at my armpit, at my shoulder blade. And then I kind of semicircle, sweep it down. It comes inside of this right knee. I'm already turning on that right foot. I'm going to push that away from me, right? And as I do, I lean back. Maybe I look down. Maybe I lift the gaze. Maybe I lean back, right? All crazy like, looking over at that right shoulder. Again, that's not for me, but you can. Breath. All right, safely bring that leg back up to bent, planting the right foot. I grab my blocks again because I'm going to step them on back with me as I drive those hips back towards the left heel. I walk these blocks back a little. Sometimes I have to kind of just manually grab this leg and shift it closer to the front of the mat, lengthening it as I turn those toes up. Sometimes this is my half monkey. I'm still getting an awesome stretch through the back of that right leg. I still feel the low back opening here. Sometimes I can lean back more, broaden the chest, right? And really, really turn that right foot on. Breathe. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. Looking beyond those front toes. I'm going to step forward again. I'm going to remove the blocks, but keep them kind of handy. If I need to, I can heel toe this right foot over to make coming in a down dog a little more accessible, like if I have stuff here, okay? But I need to tuck toes back here and decide, am I coming right back in the down dog? I am. Maybe you want to work on a little vinyasa, or you want to take a little cat-cow, then you want to lift here. Whatever you like. I've got 2 big breaths here in my Adho Mukha Shavasana, downward facing dog. That was the second one of 2, I promise. Release those knees. If you need some cat-cow here, go ahead. Right? It's a nice place to kind of regroup and do so. So from here, either you can come to your back and do that happy baby, supine squat, or you can kind of lean into the left, step the right foot forward, fanning the right toes off the right side of the mat, and then leaning forward so you can tuck the toes of the left foot so you can step that forward. Can you let the booty fall real low? If you're like, yeah, sure, but I need a block there. Okay, cool. Now I'm starting this so you can see side profile because I really want you to focus on nice length through the spine. This is how we're going to work the hips and the low back. Now, if I needed to, for any reason, if I was like, no, this is hurting my knees, this is hurting my ankles, this doesn't feel right, maybe I would kind of lift onto the ball of the left foot and sink. Maybe I would do a little switcheroo side to side. Okay? Maybe I would lift the hips just a little and then lower and then lift. Now I'll show you from the front too. You want to bring those sits bones as close to the floor as possible. But you want to try to keep the chest broad, okay? There's a lot going on in Malasana, okay? There's a lot. Once again, I'm losing my clothes. So once I find what works, I'm like, okay, this is a stretch, I can breathe. For me, I want a little bit of a deeper stretch and it's available to me. So I'm going to let my tail just kind of, it's almost just like it sinks down towards the mat. But my heart stays lifted. My neck stays long. I can breathe. So I'm guessing you're probably pretty closer to the front of your mat, okay? And that's good. That's where I want you to be. Bring a hand behind one butt cheek, hand behind the other. Come down to your seat, crisscross applesauce. Take a moment, sit up real tall. We've got one last big old stretch. So once you've kind of regrouped, reoriented, reset a little, found your body in space, found a couple breaths, ask yourself how you'd like to take pigeon pose. Okay, we can take it how I'm going to show you in a second, but some people like it more like the figure 4, where you come to your back, right? And you do this number. That's still quite a big stretch, and you can still kind of play. I always say, choose your own adventure here with the legs and the feet or the rocking side to side, okay? Some people like to sit. So they'll take same sort of positioning, but they'll bend into the legs and they'll sit up straight and do it here. I think that one's pretty intense too. One I would like you to try is I'd like you to come off across legs, back to all fours. I want you to step right foot forward like you're gonna lunge, but no, you're not. You're gonna heel toe that left foot over. You're gonna pull that left heel in, and then you're gonna kind of start to just lean forward, bending that right knee forward. As you do, tuck the toes of the left foot and scooch that left leg back to your stop point. Now I've got my blocks here. I know as I sink the pelvis down and I square my hips off to the best of my ability, I'd like to find a little forward fold. So maybe I would just come down to the forearms or the elbows. Take a moment here, breathe.
maybe I would take my forehead, right, and I would rest it upon the block. Now, my body doesn't work that way, the way I'm about to show you. But I always tell clients, if you can, go for it. If you can just kind of spill the torso forward, maybe even reach the arms forward, or any other fancy thing you want to do here in your pigeon pose, go right ahead, okay? We've got a minute on both sides. So I always say, while you're here, right, scan your body. Can you actually breathe fully, completely here? If you're like, oh, no, of course not. I cannot breathe right now. No, I'm holding my breath. We'll get through this, No, full stop. You are not doing yoga anymore, if that's what you're doing. And if that's the case, right, back off, right? Show yourself that compassion. Come to your back. Do it that way. Do it the seated way, right? Are you locking your jaw? Are you scrunching up your face? All these things, right? Can I be here in this body, in this shape, in this moment, right, as fully as possible? If not, what can I do to make that a little more accessible? One more breath. Now, from wherever you are, all I want you to do is lift your head if you're this way and lean up, okay? I'm going to scooch towards you to show you this transition. So I'm going to be all weird and circus-like here for a second. So I want you to come out of this by lifting the chest and then just leaning onto the right butt cheek. Ooh, left leg lengthens out. This will look better on the other side. It lengthens out here. I'm going to lean towards or grab onto that left ankle, and I'm going to reach my right arm overhead. Maybe after I've opened up that right armpit to the best of my ability, I look up a little. Oh, this is so good for your low back. And look down towards that left shin and back up, just making sure that the neck is safe. And then you're going to lift back up, and you're going to come forward. Now this is the front of my mat. So here's my right leg, and I'm going to scooch everything back in. I'm going to sway hips, and if I need it, I'll take some cat-cow, okay? But we're setting up for the other side. Now, one side might do one thing or like something, and the other might be like, no, thank you. I'm going to bring that left leg forward, short lunge, okay? I'm going to scooch that left foot over, pull the left heel in. After I do that, I just lean forward, dropping to that left knee. I tuck the toes of the right foot, and I reach that right leg back, back, back. So one side's usually a little tighter than the other. Here's my tight side. Oh, if you've ever taken a class with me, in person, virtually, whatever, you know that I don't refer to pigeon as pigeon. This is pinchin pose, because this is a hard one for Ashley. So again, maybe you lean forward, you come to elbows. Maybe once you've wiggled and released that pelvis down, the abdominals down, you've opened that low back, you could be somebody that's just, you just melted into the floor right now. Some people love this pose. Again, it's not a fave, but that's okay, right? I'm working on it. That's all we can do. That's yoga. But I'm here. I'm noticing all these sensations. I feel safe. I really do feel a stretch, right? Take it a moment. Wherever you are, maybe you release a little fully into it. You're looking for maybe 3 more breath cycles. And again, you stay put. I'm going to turn your way just so you can see this best. Put me upside down. Put me in a room that's 4,000 degrees. All these things. But get me in pigeon. So start to look forward. Safely crawl hands up. Lean into the left butt cheek. Oh, I'm on my sits bone. I've pulled my left heel a little closer into the groin. I sit up nice and tall. Right leg is opened up, right? And reaching out to the right, I turn that toe up. I slide my right hand down towards that right ankle. I lift the left arm and I lean over. So it's this nice big rainbowing over to the right. Maybe I look up.
Maybe I look down, up. Now, some people, I've seen it, they can reach over and their left hand can grab their right foot. I mean, it's wild, right? Here's a little business secret. Um, that's usually because anatomically they were built that way. That's it. Come back up. Find a little butterfly. Pull those heels into your stop point. Sit up nice and tall. Check the neck. Maybe release an ear to its matching shoulder. And then the other. So if you'd like, right, you can stop the video and take a Shavasana. And you're always welcome to do that. You're always welcome to, because that's one of the wonderful parts about these videos. You can pause things, you can rewind them, you can stop them. If I'm ever offering a Shavasana at the end and you're like, no, I need about a 5-minute Shavasana, right? You can do it. I'm wrapping up this practice right now, okay? So if you are ready to wrap it up, or you just like to take this moment to seal the practice with me and then have your Shavasana, meet me on your seat, cross-legged, knees dropping down close towards the ground, heart reaching up high towards the sky, prayer hands pulled in pretty close to the chest. Allow your face to fall to your fingers. Remember, it's this bowing gesture. And here you're bowing to you. I thank you. I thank you for taking this time for yourself. I thank you for spending it with me, right, in this capacity. It's an honor, but I'd like it, right? I'd like it to also be an honor for you showing up for you. Maybe a smile, maybe just a, hey, I did it, and namaste.